When we come up with creative idea, that's when we feel as if the solution is in our image, very intuitive. Imagination is there. And without checking further, you feel fairly accurate that that must be the solution. So, related to that, let me talk about the logic we use, the words, sentences, email, text, all of that, compared to the intuition. You can say this is related to Immanuel Kant may have mentioned about the concept and intuition. I don't remember exactly the phrase, but something like the concept without intuition is lame. Intuition without concept or logic is blindness. The similar notion is applied for the science and religion. Intuition is more of the religion and the science more on the logic. So what's the point of all of it? As I see me living in today's life, and perhaps I'm maybe more right brain oriented, intuitive kind, I feel burdensome when I get into the detailed logic of the tax filing or the computer related issues that when you have to upgrade the system or work on some problem solving and checking what step to take. I feel like I'm becoming very mechanistic, and more I spend time doing that, I feel I'm not living. Somehow I'm penalized and I feel like a slave of the mind constraint. The other way that I can talk about this is that when we use our mind, or I can use the word brain, using the word to construct the sentence and the logic and all of that, in a text or email or presentation, whatever the case is. As much as I've written books that often with the charts and the pictures, I like the balance of the logic to the image. And this may be also related to how the Japanese use the kanji, Chinese character, which is more of a symbol than the alphabet. We have different way of expressing. One is more symbol, the other one is phonetic, and we have the combination of it. It's like a left brain and the right brain combined. So when you read a newspaper with lots of symbols, which tend to be more complex, but you can go quickly without chasing all the letters. So the same thing I feel happens in our brain, at least in my brain, and I tend to think because of the construct, left brain is more of a logic, right brain is more of the image. If we can use the image, the processing is much quicker and get to the point, and when the intuition pops up, that is how the deeper part or the image part of a brain is functioning. Why? Because those images are stored in our memory. You can call it the unconscious part because we may not reach out so easily, but with the dream and stuff like that. So when those storage of data are accessed, especially when they tend to be more of a truth that you experience as opposed to the logic and the words that you pick up from the book. It's not the book knowledge, it's more of an image, and the interpretation of that is much quicker. As much as eyes can see, what's the word? The 1,000 words can explain. So the name of the game, if I use such expression, to live our life well, is to use more intuition, less of the logic and the instructions, protocols, mechanistic explanations, the logic and the lawyer's word and the procedures. But those has to be processed in a different way if possible. And in our mind, using the image is much quicker. So how do we do that? Otherwise, If we don't succeed, we may be more confused by the multiple input of the sentences and the logic from the book and the email. And if you read, I don't know, 20 or 50 lines of the mail, compared to capturing them like in manga, which is the cartoon, the symbols, image-oriented information is much quicker to get the point across. So when I think about, not just for the sake of the processing time and ease and waste elimination, and for us to be more empowered and become more intuitive to get things done, realizing that the logic to support is important, more we process images quickly to get to the point and have more time to loosen up, so to speak, in the state of samadhi, which is calm and quiet mind, instead of reading. I realize many people are good at reading, and they may have some way of doing it, but for me, and probably for most ordinary people, or maybe especially those with low IQ, if I may say so. But what I mean here is that the low IQ doesn't mean they are incompetent or not wise. My view is that they are wise in a different way. This may not be a good example, but in Japan we say that if you are full, I don't know what's the word, ignorant, then you don't catch cold. And I think that's very indicative is in interesting way that the ignorant people don't catch cold. Why? Because they are sensitive to what's going on in the body. We talk about the inner body sensation. If you listen to my videos and others, like I totally talk about, to get to the source and get away from the confusion in the mind. What you do is to focus on breathing or bodily sensation, inner body sensation, or possibly your posture. If your muscle is relaxed, all of that. And if you're confused, it often is helpful to have 1 minute meditation, or just breathing a few times, or watch the flower and go outside, melt into the nature. I mentioned that in the other video. So those are the process of relieving our brain from overburdening by the logics. Okay, granted, some people are good at it, but for many of us, because to me, life or liveliness that we feel is a connection. If the logic is giving us a distance to connect to the root of who we are and the insight that we can gain, how we get there more quickly in a manner that is for everyone to participate, but not the lawyers who has years of training and understanding the law to figure out what to do. It's a huge overhead to the society if we have a complexities in the law or procedures, regulations, and audit regulations only few people can understand. I apply for visa, I file for tax report, and I get confused, and you need to hire additional person. Again, that's the overhead. People make money, there's reason for them to be like that. It's kind of like having more medicine for people to take so that the medical industry can flourish at the expense of people getting confused which pill to take, or doctors to figure out what's going on here. Of course, thinking about the side effect is another issue. So simplicity, I use the word simplify, combine, eliminate in my first book of waste elimination. I believe society has, and we all have, a way to improve in that direction. As much as the society does, individually we want to get this sense. If you think about, well, let's start from this one. If you're thinking A, you're not thinking B. So if you have to think of A and B, you have to read both of them. And if you have C and D and more, you get more confusing. But if you can represent that in such a way, in a visual means, by image, that's what I'm alluding to. Let's call it, one is the linear processing. A plus B is C, and C plus F is D, or whatever. And the other one is the parallel processing. A, B, C, D, E is in the visual scene, and there's a connection among them, and they are like your base of your experience that you have acquired and stored in your memory. Instead of using this concept, they use the word like parole. I think that's how you pronounce parole. Time or space or any expression, that abstract knowledge that we can play with as if we have a higher level of understanding what it is, and then go through this abstract discussion to come to the conclusion. That has its own meaning and value in doing so, but those who are not used to it and want to avoid the mechanical process of the conceptual discussion, but the root of our existence, connected to the root of our existence from the experiential knowledge, wisdom that we gain. That's much simpler, quicker, and applicable to live our life, and therefore the life energy may be flowing much better compared to the other approach, which consumes time, energy, processing of the abstract concept, how it connected to each other, relate to the image of what they are representing, and how they are configured among themselves. That's time consuming, energy consuming. When you are surfing the wave, and if you start to think about the concept of the time of the space or the direction and the which foot and how long, 3 inches, you are too late. And life cannot be lived in such a cumbersome manner, and you don't have the sense of the inner body sensation when you're using the mind in such a manner. So Zen or the Eckhart Tolle often talk the same situation, that if you awaken and liberated, your time is much more spent in 80%, I think that's what he says, in no mind state. No mind is the state of awareness, being aware of what's going on, real time, in the now. And that's where you live, not in the concept. You don't, I think some people may want to live in the concept, simulation and all that you can play with, but for me, the liberation, the sense of liberation and the liveliness, I use the word waku-waku, the sense of aliveness, that's when I feel, not in the brain, but the body feel the energy is flowing. As much as I remember the time when I came out of the surfing in Malibu, taking a cold shower and in the sun to warm up, my whole body cells are vibrating, and that's the happiness. As much as when I had the awakening experience in the meditation 20 some years ago, big awakening helped me to get off from the constrained mind, and when it happened, the whole energy flew much more smoothly. And that's what I think we should learn, not to say that the logic is not important. Logic can help us connect to that. So there's a subtlety of how to use the logic in a principled way, but not get confused by the detail of the logic, if I may say so. So what's the bottom line of this? one way I can capture is that the linear logic use of the parole conceptual discussion can be off the reality of how the universe is functioning, but in the brain, whereas in the body and the experiential wisdom we got, where we have stored the true experience of what happened, and that is the foundation, the source, and that's where the law of the universe is functioning to make us alive. Or the cells are functioning not because of the concept, but they're built-in process of the laws of nature. That's the source. Awakening is very much tied to that. That's my experience and wisdom. And I think it is well worth to explain this, understand it, exercise it, gain the value of it, and get the sense of the energy in us being functioning in the now. And that to me is a big challenge that we may have in the society when things are changing so rapidly with lots of information. So hopefully I'm communicating something important. It may not work for those who are too sophisticated, but if you keep the situation simple, as Einstein may have said, that imagination is power, intuition is power. And that's where he came up with lots of great ideas, insight, creative thought. And I think we can live with that creativity as like a companion, the way of how things manifest, so that we are aligned with it to live our life well. Thank you.